In today's video, we're going to talk about revival of judgments. I want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what can happen if you have a judgment that is sitting out there and one of these greasy debt collection companies goes to the judgment holder, or they end up just outright buying your judgment, and they decide to go out there and try to collect on it. I want you to understand the laws of your state. We're going to go state by state, and I want to make it clear to you that this is something that you need to be aware of, because the debt collection companies are utilizing this as an additional profit center. And there are debt collection websites that are similar to eBay, where debt collectors can go on there and they can buy repo debt judgments. They can buy apartment debt judgments. They can buy credit card debt judgments. These are judgments that are already adjudicated in the courts, and for whatever reason, the creditor or whoever brought the court action and got the judgment just did not put in the work to go out and collect on that judgment. And a lot of people, when they get into that situation, it sits there and they're just like, okay, I'm good. They're not doing anything. I know I got this judgment. It makes it hard for them to be able to move forward in their life, but they do have a little bit of relief because things have calmed down, and that creditor that got the judgment did not move forward to try to collect on that judgment with garnishment or freezing assets or bank accounts. Well, in today's world, what these debt collection companies are doing is that they're saying, how can we make more money? What ways can we invest? What new avenues can we look at? And one of the new avenues that I'm seeing a lot of action on is to look through the court public judgments websites, or the court judgments that are out there for these that are in specific areas, or any area. It doesn't matter. It could be any state, any area. So what they're looking for is the judgments and their public records, and they will approach the original creditor, or even if it's a debt collector that just didn't do a good job trying to collect, and they will say, hey, we'll either buy it from you. You're not getting anything right now. We'll buy it from you, or we will take a cut and go out there and actively pursue it. And these companies are hitting people really at the wrong time. I'm getting a lot of live chats, YouTube comments about it. And the thing about it is that you don't want to have these problems come up on you, because it could just wreak havoc in your life, especially when you have gotten to, things have kind of calmed down, and maybe you're on cruise control and you're not worrying about this stuff. You want to, you're thinking of improving your lifestyle, no surprises, protecting your money. Maybe you're even working on fixing your credit. And then all of a sudden, like something like this comes out of the blue, and you're like, oh man, what's going on? What am I going to be able to do? So just so you understand, reviving the judgment refers to a legal process by which creditors extend the life of a court judgment for a debt beyond its initial expiration date. In the U.S., state laws govern the lifespan of a judgment, and the process for reviving a judgment varies from state to state. So now let's look at what is typical. Lifespan of a judgment. Judgment typically lasts between 5 to 20 years. And I'm going to have a surprise for you. There's a state that allows judgments to be extended past 20 years. And this is not just for student loans or taxes or child support. The renewal or revival process in most states, the creditor must file a motion of request with the court to revive the judgment before it expires. And in some states, they have to do it within a specified period of time, and they must notify the debtor so they can actually contest that it gets revived. Interest on judgments. Once revived, the judgment continues to accrue interest, and that's state specific. Statute of limitations. Some states have a limit on how long a judgment can be revived. And so now let's go state by state. Alabama. So this is going to be a long video, but it's worth it. You need to know this. You can look it up for your state, but I really appreciate if you want to listen to this, because you know that I'll throw in some additional information based on experience. So Alabama is 10 years, and they can revive the judgment for another 10 years. So it's 20 years total, but they have to do it within 10 years. Alaska is 10 years, and then they have to revive it before the 10-year period. Arizona, 10 years, and then 10 years. Arkansas is 10 years, 10 years. California, 10 years and 10 years. Colorado is 6 years, and then they have to renew it for another 6 years, for a total of 20 years is how long they can have it total for. Connecticut is 20 years. There is no revival process. It just up when they get it from day one, it can go all the way up to 20 years. Delaware is 20 years, and then they can judgments can be revived for another 20 years through a specific court action. That is the one that is crazy, because everybody talk about Delaware corporations and all of the protections that they have. Well, when it comes to getting a judgment, they have a 20-year statute where from day one can go to 20 years. No revival period in between, and then it can go another 20 years if they get a specific court action. Florida is 20 years, and they can revive another 20 years by filing an appropriate paperwork before the expiration date. Georgia is 7 years, and then it says here for Georgia, specifically, creditors can revive a judgment by filing a new action within 3 years after the expiration date. After. So they have a 7-year date, and then they have up to 3 years to file one after the expiration. That is a little bit crazy. Hawaii is 10 years, and then they have 10 years. Idaho is 5 years. Judgments can be renewed by filing a motion to revive before the judgment expires, and that's up to 20 years. Illinois is 7 years, and it had dormant. They specifically say dormant in Illinois. And also Illinois has actually changed theirs to now where they could just revive it at any period. Not the 7-year has now been amended to where they could just do it at any time up to 20 years. Indiana is 10 years and then 10 years. Iowa is 20 years. Creditor may file within 20 years. Kansas 5 years, and then they have to revive it, and they can go up to 20 years. They have to revive it within 10 years, though, for Kansas. So 5 years, and then if they want to revive it, they have to do it within that 10 years. They miss that mark, then it can't be revived. They don't have that go back like they did in another state. Kentucky, 15 years, and then it's still up to 20 years. Louisiana, 10 years, and then they can go up to another 20 years. Maine, 20 years from day one. Maryland, 12 years, and then they have to revive it. Massachusetts is 20 years from day one. Michigan, 10 years from day one. Minnesota, 10 years from day one, and 20 years. All of these are 20 years. So if I didn't say it, they're 20 years. And then there's the specific states that can go, one state, Delaware, that can go after 10 years if they get a court action. Minnesota, 10 and 10. Mississippi, 7 years, and then they have to revive it to go up to 20 years. But it's going to be 7 years, 7 years. They can revive it again to go up for the next 6 years. Missouri is 10 years. Revive it again for another 10 years. Montana, 10 years, and then revive it again to go another 10 years. Nebraska, 5 years, and then they have to revive it again for another 5 years. So they got to do 5-year revivals. Nevada is 6 years, and then they have to do another 6 years, and then that'll be 12 years, do another 6 years, 18, and then they get 2 years to go to the 20. New Hampshire, 20 years from day one. New Jersey, 20 years from day one. New Mexico, 14 years, then they need to revive it. They'll get another 6 years if they get the revival. New York, 20 years, and then they court action or renew action to extend for another 20 years. I'm pretty sure that they're going to have some exemptions on that. North Carolina, 10 years, and then revival for another 10 years. North Dakota, 10 years, revival for another 10 years, up to 20 years. Ohio, 10 years, and then another 10 years for 20 years. Oklahoma, 5 years, and it will expire, so they do it in 5-year increments. Oregon, 10, and then another 10. Pennsylvania, 5, so they revive in 5-year increments. Rhode Island is 20 years, can be renewed for another 20 years before expiration. Got to look up what that means on there. South Carolina, 10 years, judgment can revive for another 10 years. South Dakota, 20 years, revived judgments can be renewed after filing, revived. So that 20 years total. Tennessee, 10 and 10, up to 20. Texas, 10 and 10, up to 20. Utah, 8, up to 20. Vermont, 8, up to 20. Virginia, 20. Judgments can be renewed for another 20 years by filing for revival. I'm going to be looking that up. Don't worry. We'll get some clarification on those. Washington, 10 years, 10 years. West Virginia, 10 years, 10 years. Wisconsin, 10 years, up to 20 years. Wyoming, 5 years, and 5 years. So now, next we're going to look at how they can what are exempt for the states that can go past 20 years. Okay, so I went ahead and looked up Delaware. So it says in Delaware, judgments are generally enforceable for 20 years from the date they are entered, and creditors can renew for an additional 20 years before the original expiration date by filing a motion with the court. However, which is what I thought, not all judgments can be revived after a 20-year period in Delaware. Delaware law places some restrictions on what types of debts are exempt from revival or renewal after the initial judgment period. Specific Delaware law on reviving judgments under Delaware Code Title 10, Section 5070. A creditor may renew a judgment by filing a writ of facia. Oh man, this word got me. It is scarfacia before the expiration of the initial 20-year period. If the judgment creditor fails to act within the time frame, the judgment is generally not enforceable beyond the 20 years. Revival of the judgment allows for an additional 20-year period, extended the life of the judgment for 40 total years. It's unbelievable if properly renewed. Now, something that was specific to this was they talked about judgments that are paid. Okay, why would they want to renew a judgment that's paid or settled? Expiration, if it expired and they didn't renew it within the 20 year, of course. But here is where it gets a little bit interesting. It says that certain debts may be deemed uncollectible after 20 years due to specific exemptions, including judgments related to debts that are subject to statute of limitations or public policy consideration. For example, old tax debts or debts where the debtor is deceased or insolvent. Some insolvent may be unrevivable. What they need to be more specific about is the statute of limitations. So it says here, including judgments related to debts that are subject to statute of limitations. Subject to statute of limitations. So they did not clearly define what they meant by that. So I'm going to try to see if I can get some clarity on that. So doing my research, it does not specifically say that if a debt is past the statute of limitations, the legal statute of limitations, to collect, even though it was a judgment, can they still collect on it, even though their state statute says that are past the legal statute of limitations? So Delaware debt statute of limitations. Just because I don't have this in my head right away. The statute of limitations for debt in the state of Delaware Statute of limitations for written contract, 3 years, oral contracts, 3 years, promissory notes, 3 years, and open accounts, 3 years. So they have a statute of limitations for normal debt of 3 years, medical, and it also states here they have an update for auto loan and secured debt, 3 years, medical debt, 3 years, written contract. So it is not specifically stating that if they're trying to revive a judgment, does the statute of limitations to collect on the debt also work in your favor for being able to revive that judgment after 20 years? That is going to have to be something that would be tested. So if you have a debt, you're in Delaware, and you receive a revival of judgment, and it's going to be to revive it after 20 years, which would put you in another judgment to have them be able to collect on that judgment for another 20 years, which would be 40 years. That would be, like most people, half of your life for them to be able to come after you for a debt. We would be willing to submit your response to that revival to see if that's going to be able to stand. I don't think that it would be able to stand. All right. If you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, What Makes Us Different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the3scores.com to grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports, and all 3 scores. If you have debt collectors coming after you early in the game, grab my 3-pack of letters: statute of limitations letter, debt validation letter, and cease and desist collection activities letter. They can stop debt collector actions early in the game. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe to the channel, post your questions and comments, and like this video. This is Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of thecreditrepairshop.com.